Thank you. Let's talk about your time as a lawyer. The Puerto Rican Legal Defense Fund, is that right? Is that the name of the organization?
It was then. I think I know it has changed names recently.
Okay. How long were you a member of that organization?
Nearly 12 years.
Okay.
If not 12 years.
Right. During that time, you were involved in litigation matters, is that correct?
The fund was involved in litigations. I was a board member of the fund.
Okay. Are you familiar with the position that the fund took regarding taxpayer-funded abortion? The briefs they filed?
No, I never reviewed those briefs.
Okay. Well, in their briefs, they argued, and I will submit the quotes to you, that if you deny a low-income woman Medicaid funding, taxpayer funds to have an abortion, if you deny her that, that's a form of slavery. And I can get the quotes. Do you agree with that?
I wasn't aware of what was said in those briefs. Perhaps it might be helpful if I explain what the function of a board member is and what the function of the staff would be in an organization like the fund.
Okay.
In a small organization as the Puerto Rican Legal Defense Fund was back then, it wasn't the size of other legal defense funds like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund or the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund, which are organizations that undertook very similar work to PRALDEF. In an organization like PRALDEF, a board member's main responsibility is to fundraise. And I'm sure that a review of the board meetings would show that that's what we spent most of our time on. To the extent that we looked at the organization's legal work, it was to ensure that it was consistent with the broad mission statement of the fund.
Is the mission statement of the fund to include taxpayer-funded abortion? Was that one of the goals?
Our mission statement was broad like the Constitution,
yeah.
Which meant that its focus was on promoting the equal opportunities of Hispanics in the United States.
Well, Judge, I've got, and I'll share them with you, and we'll talk about this more, a host of briefs for a 12-year period where the fund is advocating to the state court and to the federal courts that to deny a woman taxpayer funds, low-income woman taxpayer assistance in having an abortion is a form of slavery. It's an unspeakable cruelty to the life and health of a poor woman. Was it or was it not the position of the fund to advocate taxpayer-funded abortions for low-income women?
I wasn't, and I didn't as a board member review those briefs. Our lawyers were charged.
Would it bother you if that's what they did?
Well, I know that the fund, during the years I was there, was involved in public health issues as it affected the Latino community. It was involved. Is
abortion a public health issue?
Well, it was certainly viewed that way generally by a number of civil rights organizations at the time.
Do you personally view it that way?
It wasn't a question of whether I personally viewed it that way or not. The issue was whether the law was settled on what issues the fund was advocating on behalf of the community it represented.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so the question would become, was there a good faith basis for whatever arguments they were making, as the fund's lawyers were lawyers.
Well, yeah.
They had an ethical obligation.
And quite frankly, that's, lawyers are lawyers, and people who have causes that they believe in have every right to pursue those causes. And the fund, when you look, you may have been a board member, but I'm here to tell you that file briefs constantly for the idea that taxpayer-funded abortion was necessary and to deny it would be a form of slavery, challenged parental consent as being cruel, and I can go down a list of issues that the fund got involved in, that the death penalty should be stricken because it's a form of racial discrimination. What's your view of the death penalty in terms of personally?
The issue for me with respect to the death penalty is that the Supreme Court, since Gregg, has determined that the death penalty is constitutional under certain situations.
Right.
I have rejected challenges to the federal law and its application. In the one case I handled as a district court judge, but it's a reflection of what my views are on
As an
the law.
advocate, did you challenge the death penalty as being an inappropriate punishment because the effect it has on race?
I never litigated a death penalty case personally. The fund,
Did you ever sign a memorandum saying that?
I signed the memorandum for the board to take under consideration what position on behalf of the Latino community the fund should take on New York State reinstating the death penalty in the state. It's hard to remember because so much time has passed in the 30 years.
We'll give you a
since-
chance to look at some of the things I'm talking about because I want you to be aware of what I'm talking about. Let me ask you this. We've got 30 seconds left. If a lawyer on the other side filed a brief in support of the idea that abortion is the unnecessary and unlawful taking of an innocent life and public money should never be used for such a heinous purpose, would that qualify them, in your opinion, from being a judge?
An advocate advocates on behalf of the client they have. And so that's a different situation than how a judge has acted in the cases before him or her.
Okay, and the only reason I mention this, Judge, is that the positions you took, or this fund took, I think, like the speeches, tell us some things, and we'll have a chance to talk more about your full life, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Graham.